All right, Falcons fans, the final major coordinator has been released for the Atlanta Falcons, hiring Craig Aukerman as the special teams coordinator. So in today's episode, we're going to break it down a little bit, talk about Aukerman and what this kind of brings for the Falcons here in 2026 with their special teams, which notably was the worst in the NFL last year. And then on the back half of this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the GM search and why I think in the next 48 to 72 hours, you will see that the Falcons hire their next GM and why I think it's going to be Ian Cunningham. First things first, though, make sure you hit that thumbs up icon. Make sure you hit subscribe. We're going to keep you up to date with every single Falcons transaction, whether that's a player being signed, whether that's a coach getting hired, a GM getting hired, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you are locked into the very best Atlanta Falcons content on YouTube. So I'm sure you're wondering, who in the hell is Craig Aukerman, and why is he an upgrade from Marquise Williams, who, in my opinion, was so in over his head. He had no idea what he was doing with this special teams unit at the very end. So I'll talk very briefly about where he comes from here. Apologies for the at-home setup, by the way. I know it's a little bit dark. You can't really see my face as much. It's an at-home day here for the Chat Sports crew because of how bad the weather is in Dallas. So I apologize for the non-usual setup and the graphics packages that you're used to. It's notably unbelievably cold here. There's tons of ice. Most of the roads are closed, and I live 45 minutes away, so it's tough to get into the city. Let's talk really briefly about Aukerman and kind of where he comes from here. He has been in the NFL as a coach for 26 years, and 16 of that has been as a coordinator. He was most recently with the Miami Dolphins this last year in 2025, where they had the fourth best field goal success rate in the league, making it 93% roughly of their field goals. Riley Patterson was the kicker there in Miami, who went 27 to 29. So that's good news. He's got some good experience there with kicking this last year, and kind of helping out Riley Patterson. They are also, by the way, Miami was averaging 13.3 yards per punt return, and only allowed an average of 10.4 yards per punt return, making that 7th and 17th, respectively, in the NFL. And then on kickoff coverage, 26.4 yards per return and allowed 26.8 yards per return. So 26 on the kickoffs for and 26.8 on yards per return against. Those marks 11th and 23rd, respectively. Now, we could look at that and go, is this a great hire? No, probably not. Better than Bubba Ventrone, who was most recently with the Cleveland Browns. So anything is an upgrade over Ventrone and Marquise Williams, in my opinion, which has kind of been the MO of the Kevin Stefanski hiring cycle so far, is that nothing has been A+. Everything has just kind of been B, C+ to B. And while I know Falcons fans wanted Clint Kubiak, and I did too, and I know they wanted John Harbaugh, and I did too, and I know they wanted the next best available head coach, I think the opportunity now to view Kevin Stefanski as an upgrade and this staff as an upgrade over what the coaching staff was last year is undeniable, in my opinion. And I really do believe that. I'm not just saying that to give you this sort of false sense of optimism. I do believe that this is an upgrade over Raheem Morris, Zach Robinson, Marquise Williams, and we retained Jeff Ulbrich. We also retained Nate Ollie on the defensive line as well. So that's good news as well. We are making some really solid additions to the trenches. Nate Ollie stays as the defensive line coach, and we hired Bill Callahan, who's one of the most trusted names in offensive line coaching in the entire NFL in the last 40 seasons. So there's a lot of good here for the Atlanta Falcons, but I will stand firm on the fact that I don't think any of it is great. So Craig Aukerman comes in as a clear upgrade to Marquise Williams, but I don't know that he's going to be a top 10, hire for the special teams role, and I don't know that the Falcons will have a top 10 special teams unit, but I don't think we're aiming for top 10 at this point, guys. I think we're aiming for, can we get to top 20? Because last year we were 32 and it wasn't close. We were the worst special teams unit in the league. We have to, if we're 18th next year, it's a good sign. It's a very good sign. And think about this. We went 8-9 with Raheem Morris, Zach Robinson, who was probably the worst third down head coach, worst third down coordinator in the league last year. Marquise Williams had no idea what he's doing. All of these minuscule upgrades, these tiny little improvements here and there, just little shavings off of what was really bad and polishing out into a really, really decent hire, can only take this team that much further. And then in the division that we're in, the NFC South, which is notably bad, it's a bad division. I mean, 8-9 got into the playoffs this year, and 3 teams tied at 8-9, Falcons, Bucks, and Panthers. This team will and should go 10-7 next year at minimum. And that's kind of my prediction just off the coaching alone. You got to go at least 10-7. So Aukerman comes in better than Marquise Williams did. And I'm happy that Kevin Stefanski looked outside of the nepotism hire of Bubba Ventrone here and moved to somebody who was at least outside of that inner circle, which is good to see. Now, you could have asked the same question. Why didn't you do that with Tommy Rees? We'll never know. And maybe the two of them are just like, thick as thieves when it comes to their relationship. And Rees comes in as the offensive coordinator now and Aukerman as the special teams coordinator. So I think all of these are good signs. They're not great signs. Only time will tell. We've got a lot of free agency talk ahead of us. We've got a lot of draft talk ahead of us. So now that the Falcons coaching staff is seemingly pretty much solidified and more well-rounded, I think we're in a pretty good spot here to start 2026. Let's move on really quick on the back half of this episode and talk about the GM search, notably why I believe Ian Cunningham is going to be the next Falcons GM. So if you remember at the very beginning of this hiring cycle, Cunningham interviewed for the president of football, which we all kind of knew Matt Ryan was going to get. So these almost felt like preliminary discussions with Cunningham in order to get the sense of why he was going to be a good fit for GM. And then we also interviewed him for GM. So we've had 2 interviews now with Ian Cunningham. And there's a lot of narrowing in on Cunningham now. I'm seeing more and more articles. I'm hearing more and more whispers from Falcons media members that this feels like the move that's going to be made. And Cunningham is my first choice for GM. You've heard me talk about it before. He has surrounded himself and built a career around winning organizations and winning football. The Baltimore Ravens won a Super Bowl with. Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl with. The Chicago Bears, where he's now the assistant GM to Ryan Poles, he's built a more winning culture now in a multitude of draft picks. Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland. He's had a hand in selecting all of these players. I think he understands talent, and he can work side by side with Matt Ryan, who already has the relationship built with Ryan Poles because of their days back at Boston College. So you could look at this and say that Poles hasn't had, the winning culture with Chicago yet, but the hiring of Ben Johnson here, in my opinion, has been the catalyst of success for the Bears now moving forward. They clearly now have the right coach, which to me was always the right decision for the Chicago Bears. That was the one area that they were missing because they had the talent around them. You could see it. It just needed the right developing. And that's where they're moving forward. So Cunningham had a hand in that, same with Ryan Poles. And because that relationship is already built there, I think Cunningham can take what he's learned from his time throughout the NFL, apply it to what Matt Ryan is trying to build here, work in tandem with him, and just crush free agency and the draft here in the upcoming months. I think these are all really good signs for the Dirty Birds. So if you're a Falcons fan that believes that these are all just lateral moves or you believe them to be negative moves. I'm here to challenge you a little bit to think outside of the box. And outside of the box right now is think about how bad the coaching staff and the front office has been in the last couple of years under Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris. And now look at the clear upgrades that we've gotten with an offensive-minded head coach, someone who's won head coach of the year twice, a guy who understands football for the Atlanta Falcons at a baseline level with Matt Ryan, and now even more and more stacking of better coordinators. This team is primed to make the playoffs next year, and that is the goal. Each team has different goals every single year. The Falcons are not in the sludges of the NFL. They're an 8-9 team. They've kind of fallen into football irrelevancy, and now you have the opportunity to pull away from the rest of a weak division. So making the playoffs has to be the first goal. Then we can talk about building upon that every single moment after this. So Aukerman comes in. GM should be hired here within the next couple of days. Kevin Stefanski gets named as the head coach. His opening press conference is tomorrow. We'll be live for that, back in studio notably. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell icon, and pull up because we're going to be live reacting to the Kevin Stefanski opening press conference. That's all I got for you on this episode. I'll be back later today, probably with some free agent targets, maybe a little bit of draft talk as well. But Aukerman in as the Falcons special teams coordinator now, which seemingly rounds out the rest of the Falcons coaching staff. Remember to hit that subscribe button, like today's video. Rise up, Dirty Birds fans, and be cool.